Hi folks, and welcome into the Trucking YouTube channel. We are out here today on a trail ride with Jeep Canada on some pretty gnarly off-road trails, doing a little bit of this and a little bit of this. Now for 2025, there are no physical changes to the Wrangler or Gladiator, and I'm going to tell you all about how they perform, but there is one major change we have to talk about, and that is the fact that these models are more affordable now. So let's go on a trail ride, I'll tell you how they drive, and then we'll talk about where they fit into the marketplace now that Jeep has revised its prices, so make sure you stay tuned. Alrighty folks, well here we are off-road. We're starting in the Wrangler 4xe Rubicon, and the initial thing you notice when you get behind the wheel of a Wrangler is it was really designed to live in this environment. You have this tall seating position, really good sight lines around the vehicle. I've always appreciated those flat fender flares at the front of your Wrangler because I can see it from my driver's position, so I know exactly where those wheels are. And then this is also a pretty skinny vehicle. We've been coming through some pretty tight trails today, and so far we have fit. So just overall, that's the first thing I think you notice about getting into one of these vehicles is it is designed primarily for doing this, for living off-road. And then of course you get the Rubicon package added on top, and it brings along all your good off-road equipment. So we have BF Goodrich KO2 tires, lockers in the front and the rear, sway bar disconnect here, along with a whole bunch of technological upgrades like off-road plus mode and drive modes. And that's just gonna make the vehicle that much more capable. And I think what I'm reminded of doing this trail today, because this is a pretty serious off-road trail. We've been scraping our way over these rocks and down through the mud. And then I look around and remember these are stock vehicles. These are vehicles straight from the dealership. And it again just shows you Jeep's commitment to the enthusiast. This is one brand that has really barely watered down their product. They know that they need to impress people who love to come out here and go off-road, and they absolutely still do. So I guess I want to start with just, kudos for Jeep for keeping the Wrangler hardcore. Even though they know and we know a lot of Wrangler owners will never come out here and do this, it doesn't matter. Jeep knows that if it gets rid of the real off-road credibility from the Wrangler, that the product as a whole would suffer. So that is a smart move by Jeep. Just stay the course with the Wrangler, and that's what they're doing. And we're coming into another pretty gnarly little rocky section here, so let's see how I do here in this 4xe. So first of all, let me say front camera, love it. You can't not love the front camera as an off-roader. Anyone who's dealt with off-road vehicles before, not being able to see what's directly in front of you is so annoying, so it's so nice. It's also nice that you can clean it with the touch of a button, so I do appreciate that as well. So right now I'm gonna be in e-save mode, and we're probably gonna have a little scrapey here. Now we do have the skid plate package and rock sliders here in our Rubicon. Try to be as smooth as possible. Here comes the big drop. A bit of belly rub there. Scrapey. Whoops. So I will say right there, you saw it, I'm left foot braking right now. I have been struggling to get smooth with the brakes on this 4xe, and it's just something to do with this hybrid system. The brake pedal is not just touchy, but as I brake, it kind of grabs, and then it feels like there's a little bit more of a grab all of a sudden, which comes on not from something that I did, but something that the vehicle is doing. So it's not the most confidence-inspiring thing when you feel like you're braking and then the vehicle suddenly brakes a little harder. Now I will say like anything else, sometimes it just takes a bit of getting used to it, and the more I drive this, the more I am getting used to it, but I'm finding it really hard to be smooth with that left foot braking. So there was one more good scrape there. I think we should make it through here without the scrapes. Oh, there's another belly drag. Oh yeah. We're putting the skid plates to the test today. I know for a fact there's already a big dent in my passenger side rock slider from earlier too, coming down off of a rock. And doing a trail like this reminds you why having that protection is so important, because these are all sacrificial parts. You can replace a skid plate, you can replace a rock slider. If you mess up your door, your rocker panels, or something else more serious, yeah, that's an expensive fix, whereas a little bit of steel, it's not so bad. Now, one thing, you know, there's two different minds here, but Jeep goes all steel with its skid plates, and I actually think some of the ones under the belly, they probably could afford to go with some of the composite plastic plates that we use now, especially because of the way they scrape. Okay, and it looks like we are going through one of the gnarliest things right here. You want to jump out for this one, Liam?
Yeah, we'll do.
All right, let's let cameraman Liam out. Just before I do it, Alex, do you have a recommendation between electric versus hybrid? Because right now I'm all electric. I like running an all electric. That's cool? Okay. Slowly, slow as possible, fast as necessary. Bit of slip there. Now the left foot braking feels way more natural. Yeah, feeling okay. The electric is so good. Bit of slip on the rock. Oh, hello.
Right there. Yep. Yep. Turn a little bit passenger.
Just a little. Oh. So now we go over into M1. We lock it in first gear. We're going to give it a bit of power here. No. And right here, why it's important to have a spotter, folks, because he could see that you pile a couple rocks in front of that. That's going to help that rear end lift and hopefully get me over. And my natural inclination there was to hit it with a bit of power, but when you're up on a weird angle like this, it's also pretty nerve-wracking. So, not to mention everybody's watching, but that's normal with off-roading. This is what you do when you go out in a group ride. So that's why we do, again, slow as possible, fast as necessary. And for reference, sitting here, I'm 18 degrees pitch and 17 degree roll. Nicely done.
Awesome.
Thanks, brother.
Very cool. Well done.
Well, there you go, folks, and that's one of those obstacles you look at it and go, there's no way that vehicle's getting up there, and it did. Now, it took some doing and it took some spotting, but heck yeah, and again, stock Rubicon, pretty wild. One of the smart moves I think Jeep made with the Wrangler is changing the different roof options. Of course, everyone knows the roof can come off the Wrangler and the Gladiator, but there's more options than ever for how it comes off, and the Wrangler we're in right now has the one-touch open sky roof, so literally one touch, and that soft top just rolls back all by itself. That is for sure the most convenient option. The soft top is also quite easy, but the real issue with the soft top is when it does come time to take the entire thing off, it can be a little tricky the way it works coming off and going back on. And then the hard top, another great option, but the issue with the hard top is storing it. You take your whole hard top off, you got to put it somewhere. So this kind of combines best of both worlds. You don't need to store it, you don't need to worry about putting it anywhere, but at the same time you get the convenience of that soft top. So, and it allows nature straight into your vehicle. But that's why we do this, right? And actually here in the 4xe, I think I appreciate it even more because I'm running in all electric mode, so it's silent. So again, now I'm open air. I can hear more of what's going on outside. I can hear skid plates on rocks, and I can hear tires in mud. And that definitely, yeah, it makes it a much more holistic experience when you're involving your ears like that, and then just literally feeling the air from the open air roof. So the only downside here, this is an expensive option. Well, Alex, thanks so much for having us out to your event
Thanks
today.
for coming out.
Super fun out there off-roading. I think my main question is, in an industry where we have a lot of off-road and adventure vehicles these days, it feels like a lot of them do just enough to make it sort of an adventure package, where Jeep takes the other approach. You know, the off-roading is from step one. That's what you're thinking about. So I guess my question is, how does Jeep as a brand kind of justify that? And how do you guys just keep rolling ahead when you're not, you know, giving into the temptation of maybe making it softer for better on-roading, stuff like that?
It's a fair question. And really, it comes down to what our core DNA is. This is what we do. Off-road is what we do. Do anything, go anywhere. This is the core tenet of the brand. So I think the way we look at it is, if we want to improve, enhance, we add to the vehicle. We don't take away from it. We're going to maintain our level of capability, and then we just look at different ways. Maybe it's new technologies that we integrate into the vehicle to make it better for the customer experience.
All right, fair enough. As you saw, we were out there today. We were scraping all over the place. So I also have some skid plate questions and protection questions because you guys, you know, favor steel. There's basically steel all over this thing. However, in my opinion, you know, having a composite plastic skid plate sort of after your first steel skid plate can also be a smart idea. So have you guys ever played around with different materials under there, or even aluminum? I know a lot of brands go aluminum too.
No, great question, and I always joke that it only sounds expensive, right? As it scrapes across the metal. There's just something simple about the steel, right? Customers tend to like it. It's simple. It's easy to replace if you ever have to do that. But absolutely, we've looked at different technologies and composites, plastics, aluminum, like you said. If you look across the Jeep brand lineup, Grand Cherokee has an aluminum protection. It's kind of about applying the right material to the right place. So at least to date, on Wrangler, we've got steel skid plates. It just kind of fits our product line, our platform, and let's say in the future, we look at anything that's the right thing to do, and we definitely consider it.
Okay, fair enough. I think finally, I'm just curious, and I know there hasn't been major, you know, physical changes for Wrangler and Gladiator this model year, but is there still one thing that stands out on these vehicles to you, like one bit of technology, whether it's physical or whether it's, you know, a drive mode? Is there something that stands out as you know, really impressive, something that customers should know about?
I guess you tell me. You spent all day on the vehicle. Look at all the different off-road features.
Yeah.
So I think one of the things we touched on was the Gladiator Mojave and the fact that it's desert rated. So we did a lot of low-speed rock crawling, but personally I find the Mojave really exciting. It gives you the best on-road, but also the best high-speed off-road.
Right.
And that's kind of a new avenue for Jeep for the last couple of years. It's something that we continue to evolve upon the trail rating capability that we have in Wrangler and Gladiator Rubicons, and we kind of took it to the next level.
Yeah, and I love the Mojave, and you're right, like very much, you know, the high-speed thing, and high-speed off-roading versus slow-speed is so different,
Absolutely,
right? I always
yeah,
say it's like an extreme sport versus, you know, doing a puzzle, right? When you're rock crawling and it's all real slow. So I was happy to see that as well. Yeah, I think that's it, man. I guess I should maybe ask you about the pricing, because that's a big deal here too, and I am happy. I know you're a product guy, not a pricing guy, but I mean, I'm happy to see the prices come down. Do you have any comment on sort of where the pricing is at with the Wrangler and the Gladiator in the industry?
Not really my area. I'm glad to see some of the decreases. I think it's going to really delight the customer.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I appreciate it,
Yeah,
Alex.
absolutely. Thanks for
man.
coming out.
Okay, folks, now we've done vehicle swap. We're on the exact same trail. We're running it in the other direction. And we're here in the Gladiator now, as I go ka-chunk. And there's a whole bunch of differences that you notice right away. The first one is the breakover angle, straight up. I am dragging my belly more, I'm scraping those rock rails more, and that's because the wheelbase on the Gladiator is so much longer than it is on the Wrangler. This is a known thing. It's kind of the Achilles heel of the Gladiator, honestly, is the breakover angle and the departure angle somewhat. The tail has a tendency to rub coming off a lot of these rocks as well. So you kind of have to get used to that. You have to train your brain so you're picking your line a little bit differently to make sure you don't get turtled. Now I say turtled, the technical term for that is being high centered, and that is just where all the weight of the vehicle is sitting on the frame. And there's an example of bad breakover right there. But yeah, turtled is when all the weight is sitting on the frame, so the tires don't have enough traction to do their job. So yes, breakover angle is bad. That's a known thing on the Gladiator, and it is a trade-off. It is like that for towing, because the Wrangler with its little shorty wheelbase has never been a good tow vehicle. So when they brought out the Gladiator, Jeep obviously said, you know what? We want that thing to tow 7,700 pounds, and the only way we're going to achieve that is with a longer wheelbase, and that's why we ended up with this. Now, outside of the proportions, or I should say the length, the proportions all feel really good. This feels, just as skinny as a Wrangler. I got this nice tall seating position, just like the Wrangler. So that stuff all feels really good and very similar. But the overall length and the wheelbase is definitely noticeable. Now we're getting out of the Wrangler 4xe. And the other thing that is so noticeable to me right away is I can control this naturally aspirated V6 way better than I could the 4xe. And this would be the same in the Wrangler with this powertrain, with the naturally aspirated V6s. My controls are just so much more fine. I can be so much more gentle on the brakes and on the throttle. I was able to left foot and brake through there and just absolutely creep up that rock with everything locked up. So if rock crawling, and this is what I'm getting at, if rock crawling is your main focus going for a Wrangler or a Gladiator, you might want to avoid the 4xe, or at the very least be ready to learn sort of a whole new system that just doesn't feel quite like anything you've driven before that was just a naturally aspirated gas engine. We've stopped for a moment here on the trail. I want to show off some of the new features that are in the infotainment system. Now, they're not new for 2025, but they are new when they introduced the Rubicon X model, and X really just means you're getting nicer interior appointments and all of the technology that Jeep has to offer. So you can see right up top here, adventure guides. This is actually going to show you trails in your area. It's going to give you information on those trails, what you should stop and look for, what you should look out for, all of that stuff. Plus it will actually get you there. You can see over here on the right, it gives you a number. It tells you whether it's easy, moderate. It has little symbols here showing rocks, trees, waypoints. Now, we don't have the membership turned on here because, yes, this is a subscription service. So as you can see, unless you get the subscription, you can't get the info. And for all my Canadians, they have added more Canadian trails, and they are still adding more Canadian trails. When this thing launched, there was like 1 or 2 in Canada. Now there's quite a few, although in total, there's still like 3,000 trails in here, the vast majority of which are in the United States. But I think that's a great feature, especially for someone who's new to off-roading. That takes some of the stress out of it because it does all that research for you, essentially. So I can also show you GPS trail logs. This is going to allow you to record your off-road adventures. And then if you want to go back to that trail, well, you actually have a little map, or even better, you can share that map and then other people can go out and run your same off-road route. And then finally, this again is not new, but I need to show it off. That is off-road pages. So this will give you all of your pertinent off-road information. You can see right now we are fully locked and the sway bar is disconnected. We're in 4 low. That is essentially, as off-road ready as it gets. Steering angle right there. It's another feature I think is a bit underrated, especially for rock crawling. A lot of the times someone's spotting you, you're turning, you're creeping, and then you stop. You talk for 20 seconds, and then when you go to move again, you kind of forget exactly where those wheels are. So at a quick glance, I can be like, oh, okay, I'm 8 degrees to the driver's side. I actually think that's really cool. Gauges, just to make sure nothing is overheating. Your pitch and roll there, which I've been using today. Those are just fun numbers to, show off to your buddies. And then I've showed this off too, but the front and rear cameras, rear camera's fine. The front camera, massively helpful when you go off-road, and it cleans itself. Gotta love that. So as we roll on here, I'll talk you through some other things with this Wrangler and Gladiator. First of all, I have been using the lockers today. I've been locked up in the rear most of the time, and then the front kind of been cycling it on and off. And I will say the lockers have been pretty quick to respond. I've only had maybe once or twice where it didn't sort of lock or unlock as quickly as I wanted it to. And that's something I've noticed on a lot of modern vehicles, is that our lockers are getting so much better. Not all new trucks. Some new trucks still feel kind of old school that way, but a lot of them, yes, the lockers have just become instantaneous rather than the old, turn it on, turn it off, and then have to sit there, rock the vehicle back and forth, turn the wheel. That whole process is gone, so I do appreciate that. I want to say a word on the sway bar disconnect, which once again, you can get in the Wrangler and in the Gladiator. Disconnecting your front sway bar allows for better articulation, and articulation is important for keeping all your wheels in contact with the ground. So, sometimes you'll see people go off-road and a wheel comes right off the ground. Technically, you don't want that. Sometimes it's going to happen, it's natural, but you want to avoid that to the best of your ability, and that's what the sway bar disconnect does. So sometimes it's necessary, and it absolutely makes your vehicle more capable. However, when we got off-road today, one of the Jeep fellas said, hey, unlock your sway bar for the entire trail ride. And we started driving down the trail, and right away I noticed when you disconnect your sway bar, you get a much looser feeling in the interior, meaning that when you're coming down off of rocks and stuff, you're getting more of that head toss. The vehicle just feels less controlled because, yeah, that's what a sway bar does. It controls that body motion. So I found myself right away going, you know what? No, I reconnected my sway bar and then doing stuff like you can see me doing right here. Yeah, I like having that tight control over the body. So I guess what I'm getting at here is I think the sway bar disconnect is much more when you need it, turn it on. And then when you don't need it, I turn it off because it's just, it's a bit of a disconcerting feeling. I like to feel like my vehicle's more in control, and with it connected, it is more in control. Now it's a personal preference thing, because with the sway bar disconnected as well, it almost feels a little softer at times, which can be good. So it's gonna be up to your personal preference. But for me, I like the sway bar connected when I'm just cruising on a trail, and then disconnected when I'm in those crazy moments of articulation. And that is one thing I'll acknowledge that the Ford Bronco has over the Wrangler. The sway bar disconnect in the Bronco will actually disconnect under load. So you can actually get into an articulation event, go, oh man, I forgot to unlock that thing, hit the button, and it'll go ka-chunk and actually let that sway bar disconnect. Jeep won't do that. So you have to remember to disconnect before you get into the obstacle. I think, folks, if you watch this channel a lot and you're really into off-roading, you probably already know the Wrangler and the Gladiator are two of the best off-roaders from the dealership that you're going to find on the market, period. If you're a hardcore off-roader, if this is, your sport, these vehicles cater to you. And that hasn't changed for 2025. So that's not really news, and I'm happy I could, come out here and do this because you're always reminded how incredible these vehicles are, because they really are. But the news that I want to talk about is the fact that Jeep has slashed prices. Now in America, in the United States, they cut prices a little bit, not massively, a couple $1,000s. In Canada, some of the price cuts were as big as $11,000, which is pretty crazy. And I think we can be honest about this. Jeep, after the pandemic, when vehicles were flying off the shelves, they milked it. They absolutely milked it. They said to themselves, you know what? People are buying these vehicles, especially vehicles in this kind of adventure off-road space like crazy. So let's jack up the prices and make some money. And it worked for a little while. They definitely made that money, but then quickly, Jeeps just felt so overpriced. And now on the back end of it, I think they're feeling, the negative effects, which is that I think they lost a lot of customers. A lot of customers walked in the dealership and said, how much? And I've had that experience too. Again, if you watch the channel, we test at least 1 or 2 Jeeps a year, maybe more. And every single Jeep I've tested for the last 2 or 3 years, the reaction's been the same. It's a good vehicle, but dang, is it ever expensive. So I think it was the right move by Jeep. I think it's frustrating as the consumer to have to live through this, especially if you just purchased one of these Jeeps. Well then, no, you're not getting that discount, and that has to be frustrating. And so I'm happy to see that they cut the prices, but more so than that, it's very obvious dealing with Jeep and Stellantis in general right now that the leadership changes really have led to a new culture, or just a change in culture at Stellantis. For a while there, it was just feeling very rigid, and it was feeling like North Americans specifically, United States and Canada, they didn't have autonomy. They weren't able to say, this is what works for our market, this is what we're gonna do. No, it was Stellantis head office thing, here's what you're gonna do because we want it that way. And that just didn't work because they didn't understand North American sentiments when it comes to, things like V8s, for example. That's the classic one, but so many other things. I mean, let's not forget, and let's not let Jeep forget, that for one entire model year, you could only get the naturally aspirated V6 with a manual transmission. They got rid of the V6 automatic, which is crazy. That was their #1 seller. That is the volume model. But again, that was Europeans going, you know what, we want to sell more 2 liters and we want to sell more 4xEs, so let's make the V6 less desirable, which just seems like a crazy way to think about it when you're in business. You want to offer your customers what they want, and that was the company going, nope, we're not doing that because we want it to work this way, and that's not a good recipe for business. So overall, my sense is that at Jeep, and Ram, we've done a bunch of Ram stuff lately too, there's been a lot more control returned to the North Americans, to the people running these companies in the States and Canada. They can now make decisions fully on their own that support the United States and Canada. So that's very good news. And, again, it's no secret how poorly Stellantis did last year. The Wrangler was down in sales last year. I think that's the first time since I've started doing this job over 10 years ago that Wrangler sales went down. That's just one of those vehicles that just keeps going up, or staying flat. So when Wrangler sales go down, you're doing something wrong. So, we have to recognize the mistakes that were made, and then give Jeep and Stellantis kudos for seeming to address them. Now, they have a long ways to go. It's way too early to say, yep, they're great, they're going to pull out of this no problem, but they are heading in the right direction. That is how it feels. Well, folks, we are coming to the end of this video, and I think one point that was really driven home to me today was that there are so many adventure off-road packages that we get on our vehicles now, but there are so few vehicles that their #1 job is to go off-road, and that's what the whole Jeep brand is all about. These things are designed from the get-go to live out here in the rocks and the mud, and I think we really proved that today, because the trail we went on, that was a real trail. It wasn't manicured by Jeep. A lot of the times on these events, they'll build a trail right to the spec of the vehicle. Nope, we didn't get that today. We were out there scraping and banging around, but every one of these stock Jeeps made it through. So yes, the product is impressive. And then I'm also happy to see that internally, the corporate culture, they seem to be turning things around and making better choices. So we're happy to see Jeep making these choices. We're gonna have to wait till the end of 2025 to see if they start to pay off. If you want my prediction, 25 will probably still be a little rough, but hopefully in 26, we really see the fruits of all this labor and a true turnaround for Stellantis. But for now, we have to wait and see. So yeah, folks, that's it for this one. Now, please drop into the comments. Let me know, what do you think of everything you saw in this video? As always, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit join to become a member, and then come right back here to Truck King to see what we're testing next. See ya.